Good evening, Crime Talk aficionados. This is Scott Reisch, and this is our Tuesday Night Live. Thank you for joining us. We know you have lots of things that you could be doing. Thank you for spending the time with us. First, I want to thank everyone for being here. Thank you. Second, let's do a kind of little background introduction while we wait for some people to join us as those notifications are going out. I want to thank everyone that got here early. And if you have a question, please type your question into the chat box there, and we will do everything we can to try and answer those questions. Sometimes they go by fast. Now, we're not urging. There's some people that say, super chat me this. But I can tell you it is a lot easier to see those when they go by, and we'll try to stop and focus on those if they do, in fact, come up. But if not, we will try to do that. So for maybe somebody that this is their first time joining us here on Crime Talk, obviously we talk about true crime shows. We talk about the law. We talk about the criminal procedure. And we started this program a little over 2 years ago, simply because I was so frustrated as to what you would see on the evening news. You would have these newscasters who didn't know a thing about a case, trying to explain it, and they were getting it all wrong. It was so frustrating. And so we started this channel. We were fortunate enough that we started right around the Chris Watts case came about and had some interesting issues. And oh, by the way, just happened to pick the date, and I said, two things are going to happen. They're either resetting the preliminary hearing or he's taking a guilty plea. Boom, he took the guilty plea. And ever since then, people have been trying to, some people have been trying to say that Chris Watts was innocent and that he never did it. And I have, for the last 2 years since he pled guilty, basically said, no, he's guilty. He pled guilty, and he's not going to get any post-conviction relief. Since that time, we've been following the cases. We've been trying to bring you a video just about every day, Monday through Friday. We do our weekly recap, and we try to bring you stuff on the weekends as we can. And sometimes, occasionally, things come up in the practice of law where we cannot, bring you an episode, but we try to do it every day, even when we go on a trip. We've taken you on field trips. We've taken you on trips in Crime Talk 1. To show what we do and how we get there, so to speak. And so hopefully you all appreciate it. Hopefully you all enjoy it. Obviously today, the big news, and we'll get to it in more detail, was the decision that came out as relates to Letitia Stout, who's charged with the death of Gannon Stout. Letitia was the stepmother for 11-year-old Gannon. So that case will finally get moving, and it's about time. And now it may get delayed again because, she's asking for a new attorney. We'll talk about that as well. So I want to thank everybody, obviously, for tuning in. And if you haven't done so already, please hit that subscribe button, share it with your friends, let everybody know, because let's face it, we all like true crime stuff. And this is what I've done for the last 25 years. So I think I have a pretty good perspective on the way things are going to try and turn out. Now, am I right all the time? No one's right all the time. We all can make mistakes, but I think I've got a pretty good record predicting how things are generally going to turn out. Exhibit A, let's have that marked from last week. What was that? Oh, that's right. The Lori Vallow matter 2 weeks ago. I think we called that one pretty darn accurate. Is it because we have a magic ball? Is it because we have the magic 8-ball back there telling us the answers? No, I'd like to think it's because we have experience doing this. And as we said all along, I don't see what Mr. Wood did anything inappropriate as it related to his introduction to the witnesses in that case. It just happened to be Lori Vallow's sister. Now, a couple of new cases that have developed literally since, I don't know when, from the time that we did our afternoon show today. The first real big one that's kind of interesting, I thought, was Alexis Sharkey. They have finally revealed, obviously they ruled it a homicide, but the cause of death was strangulation. As you may recall, Miss Starkey, who was going through some marital issues, and let's be very clear, her husband has not been named a person of interest. He's not been charged or arrested. But friends of Miss Starkey had stated that she and the husband had been going through some marital issues, and he would, I don't know, choke her out, apparently, according to this friend of Miss Starkey. Don't know the exact truth of that, but that's what's being reported. Like I said, we'll give everyone the presumption of innocence. No one has been charged or arrested, and it sounds like nobody's saying that anybody will be charged and arrested. Here we are 2 months later and no charges yet. Now, strangulation, we've talked about this. I mean, yes, to choke somebody out where they feel like they're going to lose consciousness, you can do that relatively quickly. But to actually strangle somebody, that takes minutes. Okay. And yes, I'm sure each case is different. Somebody can always tell me, well, there was this one case. Yes, you're right. But the cases that I've dealt with, the experts that I've had to deal with, is that, to really strangle somebody, to make sure the life is squeezed out of them, so to speak, you're talking good 3 to 5 minutes. That's, that is like the classic definition of after deliberation. And that's why strangulation cases are so difficult to defend, particularly if they can put the defendant there as the one doing it. But, we'll just have to wait and see. Now, some other news that was breaking today, and we'll talk about all these cases, but that is the police showed back up at the residence, the former residence of Photo Dulos, where it is alleged that he may have, been responsible for the demise of his wife, Jennifer Dulos, who has not been seen since last May, I think it is. And no clue. I mean, they have some blood samples and things like that in the house. They believe that they had videos, but obviously, Photos Dulos isn't going to be around because, he committed suicide. And so obviously there's, he's not there. Now, a couple of his buddies, we had when I say buddies, one was his attorney, who's also charged with murder, but also Michelle Traconis, the girlfriend. She's been charged. She's out of custody. It sounds like, from what we've been able to tell, she's given a proffer to the prosecution, but no plea deal has yet been struck. The reason why, from what we can tell, why the police went back to the home of Photos Dulos, well, first of all, it's in the possession of the bank, because 4 days before Photos Dulos committed suicide, or attempted to commit suicide, he failed at that as well, and then he spent another week trying to be kept alive. But the case had gone into the home had gone into foreclosure, just like several of the other properties that he was building in his real estate company. They were all into foreclosure. So, obviously, running away with his girlfriend didn't quite work out very well. His wife disappears. His 5 kids are living with the grandparents. He's losing everything. It didn't sound like he had a whole lot of money other than what came from the father-in-law. So, it's just a sad situation around, but you would think that, you don't have to go around killing people, right? If you want a divorce, you get a divorce. Yes, divorce is expensive, right? My divorce attorney told me years ago, do you know why divorce is so expensive? Because it's worth it. Now, I'm sure somebody will be upset by that, but it was a joke, all right? And that's what my divorce attorney told me. And, it was kind of funny at the time. And I think his other words were, hey, what do you want me to do? You married her. So that's just the way things work out. But you don't go around killing people that you don't want to be married to. That's not the way to do it. Photos Dulos, it's money. You can go make more. Well, he can't anymore, but that's what he should have been, his mentality. Like, listen, I'm leaving you. I'll do whatever I can to take care of you and the kids so that you're accustomed to the lifestyle to which you would become accustomed. And, but no, obviously she's not around. We haven't been able to find her. No one's been able to find her. And nobody seems to be offering much help. It'll be interesting to see if the trials, when they go. Kent Mulhenny was the friend / former attorney. They both, along with Michelle Troconis, have pled not guilty to the conspiracy to commit murder charges. The police are back there because the home is in foreclosure. They're trying to see if there's, following up on any leads that, they can, follow up on if there's anything, because guess what? Once that house is gone, it's technically, a crime scene. Yes, it's been released, but once you have somebody else living in the house, cleaning that house, all those types of things, if there was something of evidentiary value, more than likely it's gone. Like I said, you would think that Mulhenny or Troconis, if they were going to do something, now would be a good time to cut a deal. Photos Dulos wrote kind of a suicide letter saying that neither Mulhenny, I take that back. I don't think it involved Mulhenny, but it said that his girlfriend, Miss Troconis, had nothing whatsoever to do with anything. Now, guess what? Nobody believes that on the district attorney's office, and it's not coming into evidence. The man is dead. It's not coming in. It's hearsay and would not be subject to cross-examination. Therefore, that statement, wouldn't come in. I mean, think about it. Miss Troconis, Mulhenny, they would love to have that note. We introduced the note of the real killer. Guess what? The real killer didn't stick around long enough to kill everybody, to save everybody that's involved in the alleged killing. So those are a couple of matters that, we talked about today. Then on today's show, obviously we had an update regarding the young boy that was rescued along with the other child. They're now in protective services. The Mrs. Potato. I mean, that's Server. I mean, that is a hero, right? Think about it when we've all seen something that just didn't seem right. And, maybe you didn't say something. Maybe, I don't know. In this particular case, I mean, that waitress, true hero, could feel it in her gut. Something wasn't right, wrote out a sign, held it up, kind of, so she could get a response. They called the police. We put that 911 call up. It was just a couple of days ago. Was that Monday or was that Friday, I guess, of last week that it went up? Anyway, it went up. You can find it in the videos below. I mean, it's so frustrating. I know that the 911 operators are supposed to be calm, cool, and collected, but man, maybe they're taking care of things. But when you're listening to it, you're like, hurry up, lady, send the officers now. This guy could get away. This kid's in danger. Do something. Anyway, found out this guy, he has issues. His ex-wife said that he would beat on her children. And, that's obviously not good. Nobody should hit children. Like, come on, people, pick on somebody your own size. That's just bottom line. Don't do it. And, things change. And I know I can say, well, my mom used to stand at the back door and swat us all as we ran inside when, me and my brothers didn't get along. It's a different time. We've learned a lot over the last 50 years that you don't need to, beat somebody into submission, so to speak, to get them to do what you would like them to do. So we can talk about that, and also the dumb criminal contestant of the day. Wow, I think I was going to mention it, and I don't want to pick on her, but man, what was that lady wearing? I mean, the people that should have been called were the fashion police. Oh my gosh. Like, you just get it. Sometimes people walk out of the house and think, man, I look great. And that must've been our dumb criminal contestant of the day, Cindy Falco Di Corrado. But man, I don't know. She was that was a little intense. And the police officers just asked, just leave, please, ma'am, please get up and leave with me. But like all things in life, there's an easy way and there's a hard way. Everybody always picks the hard way. Why is that? I can guarantee it. I don't care. When you deal with trying to solve people's problems on a daily basis, you say, hey, here's option A. It's easy. We'll get this matter resolved. You'll be on your way. Well, no, I don't want to do that. That's too easy. Okay. We'll go option B then, but that's the hard way. And we're probably still going to come out to option A, the end result. But I understand you want to take the long way, but if that's what you want to do, okay, let's do it. Everybody always picks the hard way. That's just the way it is. So, all right, let's take, let me scroll back up here to the top. Is that me scrolling or you? That's me. Let me scroll back up here to the top and see if we can answer a couple of questions before we get going here. Somebody just live chatted us. Let's see if I can click on that, right? And it'll take me to it. Samantha Redden, thank you. Best crime channel on YouTube. I appreciate that. We try to literally bring you the facts, the best facts that we know. If the facts change, we'll tell you. If our analysis changes based upon the law and the facts, usually the law is pretty consistent, right? It's the facts that change. Just like what we do in real life as a practicing attorney. You have to think like an attorney. This is the law. These are the facts. If I apply the facts to the law, am I going to win or not? You don't get to make up your own facts because in court, guess what? You have to be able to prove it. Ask that of people a lot of time. Okay, that's an interesting story, but how do I prove it? Okay. Now, yes, one person testimony, that is evidence if they take the stand and are subject to cross-examination. They can testify as to what they did, what they said, and what they observed. But they can't testify normally to what other people said, what other people say they heard. Don't get to do that. So that's what making is going to court so difficult. And most people don't realize that. They just think, well, there's all these people that say something. They saw something. Okay, well, first I got to get them all there, right? Think of it as you're an attorney. You have to get the witnesses. Sometimes you have a big case, lots of witnesses. And it's always interesting when sometimes you got to go as a defense attorney and talk to the prosecutor when you're maybe trying to cut a deal and say, and you just ask them point blank, you have your witness, maybe they're transient. Who knows? They're couch surfing. And a good, honest DA will say, Scott, I have no idea where the witness is. We're trying. Sometimes we get a return call. Maybe we have a good email, but it's like herding cats. Lots of times people move, they move on, they change their phone, they get a new phone. They don't notify anybody because why? They're trying to live. They're not worried about being a witness in a case. It's just the facts of life. That's what makes cases difficult. If you have to, whether it be on a civil side, bringing a case as a plaintiff or a prosecutor, bringing the case on behalf of the people in which they represent, it's more difficult than people think. You have to get everybody at one location for a trial at the same time. Consider the rules of evidence to get the evidence actually in. Is it truly relevant, right? Relevance is, does it go to prove or disprove the elements of the offense? Not because it's some weird theory, not because it's, it has to be relevant. What element does it go to prove or disprove? And if it's not relevant to that charge, guess what? Nobody cares. It's not coming in. So that's it's just a reality of court. It makes it difficult. It's kind of like, everybody picks the hard way. All right, let's see here. They were digging in photos of his yard all day. Looks like Tic Tac in Farmington, Connecticut. Well, maybe they found something. You never know. I mean, they're following up on leads. I doubt Photos Dulos, if he was going to bury Jennifer Dulos, would put the remains in the yard. But hey, you wouldn't think people would do that, but then you have to turn to Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell. Hey, we've got these charred remains, the remains of these children. I know. Let's not put them in the great state of Idaho somewhere. Let's not drive in the middle of nowhere in Idaho, which could take you, 5 minutes to get to the middle of nowhere where they are, right? Let's put them in the yard. Let's do that. So you never know. You can't assume anything. I was having this very conversation today with an attorney. Assume nothing, okay? You have to always go back and talk to everybody. Don't assume somebody would be smart. Don't assume anyone would be stupid. You just don't know. You have basically leave no stone unturned. Jeff wants to know, what kind of airplane do you fly? We have a Piper Malibu, Jeff. It's a nice little plane, seat 6, pressurized, gets me where I need to go. Every time I want to step up to a turboprop, something breaks, or I have a friend that has turboprops or jets and convinces me that, wow, that's really, really expensive. So unless one day we are getting about 1 million views a day on YouTube, they're probably, we'll see. You never know. Win a big case or something. But unless we're getting about 1 million views a day monetized, I don't think there'll be any turboprops just yet. They're just so expensive. I have a friend that took his jet down for an inspection, and it was $125,000 per engine. And that was assuming it was just an inspection, that everything was fine. It didn't, have to have any repairs. So $250,000 for that inspection. Crazy, crazy, crazy. So my little plane gets me where I need to go just fine. Let's see here. Hi, Jessica from Minneapolis. Betty. Wow, we got Beck McLeod from Australia. Wow, that's great. Lee, Pamela, Michelle, Peace World, Mel, Joe, Kristen Froheiser. Thanks for watching. Appreciate everybody. That's great. Let's see if we get another question here. Looks like I've got is that a thing? Hey, Scott, love having an unbiased explanation of these cases. I'm wondering what you think is going on with Cal City with the missing kids. There's not a whole lot of breaking news on that. The kids went missing. Obviously, there's some weird stuff going on. A couple of kids just disappear from the backyard, right? While mom is inside. So yeah, it's weird, but not a whole lot is going on in the case. We're waiting and wait to see. And sometimes that's the hardest case. Look at the cases that we've followed, just from the beginning of last year. Photos Dulos, no resolution yet. Missing people, you have to be able to find them. And, most cases, there's an exceptions to every case. Look at the Patrick Frazee case. No body. Well, what's the exception? They had somebody that says, yeah, there's no body because I was there when they burned the body. But you have to be able to have a body to show if somebody's deceased, or they found them with somebody to say that they were kidnapped. No matter how ridiculous you think the story may be, no matter how ridiculous how much you want to charge somebody, that you just know it in your gut. Maybe the foster parents had something to do with it, but you still need evidence to back it up. That's what it's really all about. So hopefully that answers questions. Now, one thing you bring up, I do try to scroll through and try to respond to people in the comments. And there was somebody the other day, I don't know if I took a screenshot on my phone. It's like, it's basically unbiased my ass or something to that effect. Excuse my French. And I responded back to the person. And I said, well, what case do you think that I have been unbiased about? I have no dog in any of these fights anywhere. Like, this is the information we know. This is the law. Like, what do you think I'm being unbiased upon? If somebody has a good case, I'm like, hey, the defense has a viable defense here. If they don't, I tell you, they got some problems. Okay, we'll give them the presumption of innocence because we would expect that, for anybody accused of a crime. That's one of the most important things we have in our Constitution and our criminal justice system. But it's funny, and I went back and checked, and they deleted their comment. Like, okay. And I also think it's interesting when people say, Scott, I don't agree with you on what your analysis was. I am leaving. How dare you say that, whatever. It doesn't even matter. Sometimes I can't even understand why people are getting mad at me. And they're like, but I'm unsubscribing. Oh, okay. So you went to all that trouble to tell me that you were unsubscribing because you didn't like my analysis? I mean, okay. What am I supposed to do? Beg you to come back? You're unsubscribing. I wish you all would stay, but it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's just funny to me that, when I ask somebody, it's like, okay, what am I being unbiased about? What am I not just laid it out there for? Let me know. And then they remove their comment. Interesting. Kristen makes Letitia's been faking mental illness for some time now. I'm glad they finally found her competent. Yeah. So I believe it was on January 2nd when I was looking at the minute orders that the good doctor that was doing the evaluation on Letitia Stout, and this was the second evaluation that had been done. So just generally when it comes to competency evaluations, usually it's the defense that raises the issue of competency, where you think, man, I'm just not sure my client really gets it. Maybe there's a history of mental illness. Lots of things come into play for sure when you do that. And as a general rule, you have to be careful with it. Okay. I don't take raising competency very lightly. And as I think we can see here, and I will tell you, this is speculation on my part, but we now have heard Letitia Stout wants to fire her public defenders. Well, could that be because the doctor found her competent? Well, that's completely out of the control of the attorneys. But if the attorneys were raising competency over the objection of their client, that creates huge trust issues. And when you have huge trust issues with your client, guess what? That creates problems. And one of the things as a defense attorney you have to do is to hopefully have a client that trusts you. Okay. You are giving advice that's going to affect their liberty in some cases. And it would be obviously in the Letitia Stout case. And if somebody's found not to be competent, it doesn't mean they go home. It means they head off to the mental health facility down in Pueblo, Colorado, and they stay there until they're restored to competency. And if they can't, then there's other things that go on. But you can only be held the length of the maximum length of the sentence. So if the sentencing range is 6 years, okay, they can hold you and try to restore you for 6 years. But if it's life, they could keep you in facility for life. So a lot of people think, well, if they're not competent, or if they're not guilty by reason of insanity, they're like particularly not guilty of reason of insanity, they're going to just get off scot-free. No, they're going to a mental institution to stay there to basically serve their punishment, and they'll be released when then hopefully they're safe. But these competency issues, they're complex, and they raise lots of issues, like I said, with trust with the client. And it's easy to raise the issue as an officer of the court. You have to fill out an affidavit, not fill it out, but you have to submit that I have a good faith basis, that somebody is not competent, and you have to kind of outline what you've seen. Now, could it be somebody has racing thoughts? Could it be that they're rambling, they can't do it? Well, guess what? That could be somebody just simply has ADD. They're focused. They're depressed. they're looking at spending the rest of their life in prison, if you refer to the Letitia Stout case. There's lots of things where people could be just maybe not with it or focused. Maybe they have some theory of defense. Well, that maybe is not viable. So maybe the theory of defense is not viable. Instead of the attorneys just simply dismissing that, and I'm not saying that's what happened in this case, I'm just saying as a general rule, what I've seen is you as the attorney have to explain it. And, like I said, one of the things that we've tried to do on this show is be able to explain the law to all of you. And a lot of you know the law. A lot of you are very smart. You have an amazing understanding of the law. But sometimes most people never had a run-in with the law, and they don't get it. And you have to explain it to them. And sometimes it's frustrating because you feel like you've explained it to them several times. But sometimes that's what it takes. I've written 15, 20-page letters outlining, here are all your charges. Here's what the government has to prove. Here's a copy of what the jury instructions would say. Here's the maximum penalties. Here's the elemental instructions. Here's the legal definitions. Boom, boom, boom. So that they can do that. And I try to walk them through that. And sometimes, so when you have a situation like Letitia Stout, where all of a sudden she is saying, I want new counsel, I want a hearing regarding a conflict of interest, my guess is there's communication issues. I'm just guessing. And I'm telling you that straight up. I don't know. I don't know these attorneys. I don't know Letitia Stout. But that's what it seems like. And I was always skeptical of the competency evaluation. I wasn't skeptical of the result at all because it was made public record, the letter that Letitia Stout sent to the judge. And to me, it seemed like somebody that was very competent in the sense that they're aware of their surroundings. Like, hey, I have these really charges, but there's just a big misunderstanding. We need to get back to work. I got to get my teaching license and we're going back. Now, could one say that's a little outlandish because you're facing murder charges and you may need to accept a new reality that you may never be going home, right? But maybe that's what they need to kind of get them through the day, so to speak. So, like I said, so I'd be curious to see what we find out as it relates to any motions that are going to be filed by the public defender to either withdraw or to say there is no conflict just because she doesn't like the decisions that we're making. She really doesn't have a say in that. And that's what a lot of people, and this is why it comes down to trust so much when it comes to your attorney. The client generally makes 3 decisions in a criminal case. Okay. 1, who is their attorney going to be if they can afford to hire one? If not, it's court appointed. You get who gets assigned to you. All right. The next decision that the client gets to make generally is, am I going to plead guilty or go to trial? Those are ultimately the decisions of the client. And then the third and the biggest decision is at trial, is the defendant going to testify or not? Yes, you want to listen to your attorney, but at the end of the day, it's always the defendant's own decision to make. All right. So a lot of times defendants always say, well, you need to file this motion. You need to do this, this, and this. And this is why I think it's to trust. You have to explain the process, explain what we're doing and why. Here's the good things about it. Here's the negative things about it. And as an attorney, I like it when the client's on board with the decisions we're making, right? Who likes to, conflict with a client? We want the client to be happy. This is what we're going to do. You like to get them to go on board. If they say, yeah, I don't think so, maybe tactfully. And I've had clients talk me out of some that I thought was good. And sometimes they're right. But like I said, those are the kinds of things that come up when it comes to trust. And so clients, you want them on board, but they only make those 3 decisions: who their attorney is going to be. And if they can hire private counsel, you have a right to counsel of your choice. If not, you get who they appoint to you if you qualify. The decision of whether to plead guilty or to go to trial. And if at trial, whether to testify or to remain silent. Those are the 3 decisions. I always have clients that want to, I'm going to cross-examine these witnesses and I'm going to feed you all the questions. Like, okay, you can give me all the questions you want, but I'm going to decide ultimately how it comes in. if we ask that particular question. And, well, I want you to ask this question. Well, it's not relevant. It's going to be sustained. It's completely objectionable. Well, I want you to answer it. I'm not going to do it. Sometimes you have to tell the client that's just the way it is. If you don't like it, you can fire me. And you can do it yourself. But then you say, all right, not that maybe you'll do a splendid job at your first trial where you're looking at spending a long time at trial, or, I've maybe done a couple hundred of these. Maybe you'd want to listen to my advice and see how this would turn out. So we'll see. So anyway, and one more thing on the competency. The first report came back, said competent. Defense then said, well, we want our own report. Comes back competent. At that point, it's pretty much over. Had the second report come back as not competent, both sides would have demanded a hearing, because you have to assume the prosecution wouldn't say that she was competent or that she was incompetent, and therefore they'd have a hearing. And the judge would have to decide. It would be the battle of the experts, which would have kind of been interesting. But when you get two reports, competency is pretty much off the table. Now, understand, people can move in and out of competency throughout the process, throughout the duration of the legal proceedings. So let's say they get a couple weeks before trial. They think the client's going into some sort of psychosis, delusional. Yes, competency can be raised again. You have to have a good faith basis to do it. You can't use it as a tool for delay in any way. All right. Jump back a couple of questions. Melissa, where'd the propeller go? It's right over here in the corner. A couple of things got moved around. It just didn't fit, but it's right over here. Okay. But you're not the first person who's asked that. That's a lot of people have asked, where's the propeller? People are very observant for the background. This is probably on Esther. What is the legality of a corporation association to mandate their members' lifestyle and language outside of business? Well, if that's a condition of employment and everybody knows about it, I think they can do that. I mean, most companies, if you embarrass them, they'll let you go. It just depends. Depends on where you are, what state law is. It just remember, Lee, Scott, why did you start studying law? Well, I always thought the law was very interesting. I thought about it, but originally at the time, I thought I was going to go be a pilot in the Marine Corps, an officer in the Marine Corps. It didn't quite work out because I injured my shoulder, had to have surgery. And at that time, they did what they called NPQ, not physically qualified, which I thought was a little ironic because I was still in the Marine Reserves and they were getting ready to deploy us to go to Persian Gulf War I, where I was completely qualified, but I wasn't qualified because I had surgery and I do physical therapy to fly. So they NPQ'd me. So I said, hey, this is a good chance. Plan B, we'll go to law school. But I always thought it was interesting. I always wanted to do it. I think I mentioned this before, To Kill a Mockingbird, great book, great movie. If that doesn't inspire people to become an attorney, to fight for the underdog, I do not know what would. Just a great, great story. Hello, everyone from North Carolina. Crime Curious, great. Love you, Scott. Everyone from snowy, cold Wisconsin. Yeah, I think they got a lot of snow up there, didn't they, just recently? A lot. It's a magic 8-ball. Oh, did I say something else? The magic 8-ball. Make a bit of a blip mistake. Oh, okay. I don't know. Let's see. But, that's one of the things we do on our Patreon show when we get done here is that we take the question. We come up with a question. Our Patreon members come up with a question. We ask the magic 8-ball. I think we're doing pretty good, but apparently maybe we made a mistake somewhere along the way. But I thought we were batting 1,000 there. Samantha Starkey's husband, I don't know whether he's involved or not. It sounds like they were going through some marital issues. Who wants to speculate? I mean, could you imagine if your spouse wound up missing and yes, you had had a fight with them the day before, but you had nothing to do with it? You certainly wouldn't want to be accused of a crime if there's no evidence. The bottom line is, if the police thought that they could prove the case, the prosecutor working with the police thought that they could prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt, they had a suspect, they would file that case. But they have to be, very careful. You can't go around just arresting people if you don't prove your case, because why? Those proceedings get started. And why rush it, right? There's no statute of limitations on homicide cases. Terry, did you get your ears lowered? Yes, I did. Yes, right before the show, went to see my barber, Clint. Cleaned me up a little bit. I was looking a little ragtag for sure. I tried to do it yesterday, but he doesn't work Mondays. We had a big argument before the appellate courts today, and I was looking at how shaggy I was. I couldn't believe it. It was embarrassing, but I just got so busy. And let me tell you, there are appellate attorneys out there, right? That this is what they do all the time. Do you know how long you get? Show of hands. Do you know how long you get for an appellate argument at the federal circuit level? Guess. Maybe an hour? 30 minutes? No. 15 minutes. Okay. So literally, I felt like I was preparing for Professor Brody's contract class. Okay. When I was in law school, there was a Professor Brody, one of the best professors we had at school. He taught contracts. He had taught contracts for like 40 years, right? He had his notebook and his examples and the pages. He would turn them and they would fall out because, the page has been, flipped so many times. But when you'd go to class, you'd be expected to be prepared on everything. And as the year went by, you were responsible for everything that was in the book. And, the books, they're thick, I don't even know if they do books anymore. It's probably all digital, I guess, in today's law school. But then you had to actually read books and highlight, and you would use the red pen for the facts and the green for the issue, and the black for the rule of law, and outline those cases so you could have them and you were ready to go in case because Professor Brody would have everybody's name on little 8x, little cards, the little note cards. And he would literally shuffle them up before class, and he would draw from the top and be like, "Oh, Mr. Reich, can you please tell us the holding in whatever?" Okay. And I never forget, one day he sat there and my name kept coming up. Like, what the hell am I doing? Right? "Oh, Mr. Reich, your name keeps rising to the top, kind of like pond scum." And I was like, how? That's not nice. But it's law school, right? I mean, Professor Brody was like, the law professor in The Paper Chase. You completely respected him. You were scared of him. And you really wanted to please him because he was, you just thought he was so smart and he was teaching you stuff. To this day, I still remember his definition for consideration, right? Every contract needs consideration. Consideration is a promise, act, or forbearance, bargain for, given in exchange for the benefit of the promisor, detriment of the promisee. Okay. We had to have that memorized. So 26 years ago, I still remember that from 26 years ago. All right. So we digress. So anyway, 15 minutes before 3 federal judges, between the briefs, between our brief, the government's brief, probably 90 pages of stuff. Probably cited to 70 cases between our brief and the government's brief. So I literally felt like I was studying for an exam. I mean, I knew the stuff, but I was ready for all the minutia. I was in the weeds. I was ready for anything. And they didn't ask me anything. I mean, they asked a couple of questions, but they were like easy. I was so ready for it, but I probably spent 30 hours preparing, over the last week, the weekend, last night, getting up early, making sure I was ready. I was ready to go. And it was like, that's it? That's all you're going to ask me? Like, man. So frustrating. That's the part they don't tell you about law school. Okay. That's the part that, everybody thinks it's like, LA Law. It's probably before some people's time. I don't even know what's a good law show on TV these days, but it always takes longer than you think it will. Drafting, researching, redrafting. It is time consuming. And, litigation is a black hole. There's always something that can be done. There's always something that you can do in a case. And at some point, it's like, where do I stop? And that's the problem with litigation. There's always something else you can do. You can double check something. You can look into this lead. Is it going to be a rabbit hole? Is it going to be, is it relevant? Is it going to be wasting the client's money? We don't want to do that, but we have to make sure we do it, because what if we don't? And then it comes back to turn into something else. We'll see how things go. I mean, you never know what the appellate courts will do. The 10th Circuit has not been good to me over the last couple of years. So we will see what we do. And if not, back to the Supreme Court, I say. Of course, if they grant certiorari, which is discretionary. So we'll have to wait and see. I'll let you know how it goes. It could be weeks, it could be months. I've been waiting over a year for an opinion on a case over there. Danielle, did I say Starkey? It's Sharkey. Thank you. Sorry. That's what I love about our subscribers, our viewers, is that if I say something wrong, they're going to let me know. Thank you. Okay, Lee, I'm not sure what this is referring to. Something about e-transfers. Doesn't know what e-transfers. I'm from Canada, but I'm pretty sure you all deal with e-transfers also over your way. Sure. Money happens, transfer all the time. Esther, did you ever find out what Chris Watts' girlfriend, Nicole Kessinger, if that's really her name, was changed to? No, I have not. And to be honest with you, I haven't looked that closely. Shortly thereafter, I think I told you my story when I went up to the name change hearing that was set. The file had been suppressed, which means that the attorney or the court filed a motion basically saying this shouldn't be made available to the public. I chatted with the judge. I've known the judge. We're acquaintances through work, but we knew who each other were. Hey, Judge, and hey, Scott, how are you doing? Oh, I'm here for this hearing. Oh, I thought you were. Yeah, it's been sealed. It's been changed. Wouldn't tell me when it was going to be, if it had already taken place and had been sealed. Got a real problem with that. It's a form of censorship. Because us people don't need to know these types of things. I got a real problem with that. It really just bugs me. It's a public file. It's public information. But in the age of computers and little suppress buttons that they can hit, it becomes very frustrating because, you can't get that file. And here in Colorado, it's becoming more and more so where judges can limit it. And, it's a public file. It is a public proceeding. And at what point, titled to a public and open trial, is it where the judge says, I'm not going to let anybody see this file. Okay. People change their names for lots of reasons. Maybe they just want to start over, got a divorce, never liked that name, whatever. There's lots of reasons. But the reality of it is, I think it should be public information. They didn't like it, but that's the way it is. But I assure you, if I find out, we're not going to do anything that's going to put anybody in harm's way. We would never do anything like that. But, if we find out what it is and it's safe to do so, we'll do it. Let's see here. Selena, my divorce was worth. I bought my ex a chair, but they wouldn't let me. That's funny. You see that funny? I bought my ex a chair, but the state wouldn't let me plug it in. That's so hard. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah. Maintenance. God, gotta love maintenance, don't you? What can you do about it? That's okay. Just have to look at it as money, right? You can always go make more for sure. Colleen, how are you feeling? I feel great. I feel amazing. Yes, we had that little COVID bug back in early November, but I'm fine. The way I look at it, man, I got my COVID card. Let's move on. Let's do this. I don't know where you live, but here where I live, there used to be no traffic. Now the rush hour traffic going home is just as bad as it used to be. I think the world is ready to move on. They're done. They're done. And I've known so many people that have got COVID. They're like, yeah, we're done with it. We're through it. Let's just move along. Brenda, I read an article once in one of my science publications that said humanity would breed itself out of existence. This stuff kind of bears that out, doesn't it? Yeah. That's funny. Blix, my lawyer used to represent Pantera. They gave him a gold record that hangs in the office. Says, thanks for getting us out of that shit, man. That's good. That's great. Christine Wilson, Scott, I heard Chad DeBell signed his house over to his attorneys. And I'll be honest with you, I tried to look this up today and I ran out of time because, I had this 3 judges that I had to talk to. I was kind of focusing on that. Now, somebody sent me something and been hesitant to talk about because I don't know if it's truly legitimate. I'm assuming if somebody sends me something that there would be. But I'll be honest with you. Before I say yes, something actually happened, I'd like to see a deed, a quit claim deed or something. Because what somebody sent me has the name of the property and it has Tamara Daybell, which was obviously Tammy Daybell, Chad Daybell's wife, and then John Pryor listed that as well. That gets into lots of issues. Certainly Mr. Pryor has a right to get paid. So was there a quit claim deed for his interest, which would mean there's only 50% interest in the house? I can tell you, we can't do that here in Colorado. I don't know what the rules of ethics are there in Idaho, but we had a guy years ago, and I say years ago, this has got to be at least 20 years ago. He would get a client, serious case. He'd say, I'll give you a little bit of money, but I'll take your house. I'll take a deed, a lien on your house. They'd lose the case. Client goes to prison, can't pay the attorney forecloses, gets the house. We were told you can't do that. It's unethical. It's kind of like you have an interest in that property, and it could create a potential conflict if that were true, because are you really zealously representing the client, or are you maybe throwing the case so he loses, goes to the house, and you get the house? You see where the conflict comes in here? So that's kind of an issue there. So I don't know. Before I'd say it's a definitive, it happens. In today's world, people can change stuff all the time. They send it to me. I take it as true. Most things that people have sent me to the email at scott@scottreisch.com, it's been legitimate. People get stuff and I take them at their word. But I just say with a little bit of hesitancy, I still think if it's truly been signed over, I'd like to see a quit claim deed doing that. So yeah, so we'll just leave that for now. but hopefully soon we'll be able to jump. It's just a weird time right now. We've been doing no trials whatsoever for the longest time here in Colorado. And now here we're in February, March, we're supposed to kind of resume in most jurisdictions. Numbers are still so high, but like we need to know because, everything's been pushed out and you are going to see the dockets are jam packed. And I don't know how they are in your jurisdictions, but if they've suspended jury trials and basically either if people aren't pleading guilty, they're sending them for a jury trial. They're going to be stacked up 10 deep. 10, 20 deep. It's just crazy right now. And nobody seems to have a good explanation as to what's going on. Here, all the numbers were up. And one day the governor said, we're going to open up our restaurants so you can serve 25% capacity. Really, governor? Because all the numbers are still higher than when you shut us down. Well, that doesn't matter because now we need to get back to work. Okay, good for me. I get it. But it just makes no sense, which is what I've been saying for the last 9 months. And, I believe COVID's a thing. Had it. Sucky 8 days. I'm telling you, it wasn't fun. If you may recall, didn't do any videos that entire week, right? But I think I was one of the few people that actually read all the executive orders. And I was like, this makes no sense. Everybody can go to work. They were all pretty similar, but the ones here were, these people are essential. And it included everybody, including lawyers. We were all essential. Got to have lawyers. If you worked in restaurants, you worked in delivery, you worked in gas stations, airports, blah, blah, blah. The list went on and on and on. And then if you read the fine print, like lawyers do, it said, if you support an essential person, you're essential. And then it said, if you support a person that's supporting an essential person, you're essential, and so on and so on and so on. So if somebody actually read these things, you would see that they had no effect whatsoever, but a lot of people were scared into staying home. And I get it. Nobody knew at first what COVID was going to do. Like, if we get it, are we all going to die? Or dead? That's what everybody made it out to be, right? And then it turned out, wow, even if you get it, you got like a 99.7% chance of survival. I think people are ready to move on. I think they're ready to get back to their life again. And in all honesty, and this isn't political, I'm just saying, if you look at the states that have shut down, their numbers keep going up. They shouldn't be if that's what's going to prevent it. That's a fact, right? It's not anything. It's just the reality of it. So I think people are done. People are ready to get on with their lives. And hopefully with the vaccine, it'll move things up a little faster. But either way, people are ready to get back to life. Let's see here. Thank you, Jenny. I agree, Agnes. Yes, that lady at the diner, at the Mrs. Potato. Can we find what the Mrs. Potato? Can we find what the Mrs. Potato restaurant looks like? Seriously, I want to go there just to see, what do they serve? Like potatoes? Like French fries or something? I would love to go there just to see. It was road trip. Now I was giving you a thumbs up, but I think it was coming across. Let's see here. Will there ever be murder charges against Chad and Lori? I don't know. Hey, I'm a firm believer. Hey, if the prosecutor has got the case, charge it. If they don't, they're not going to do it. I personally think if they had it by now, they would do it. The only way they're going to get homicide charges out of this particular case is if somebody rolls. Okay? Whether Lori rolls, Chad rolls, based upon what we've seen from those transcripts, clearly the prosecutor thinks that they both have culpability, and that Chad, I think Mr. Wood thinks that Chad is kind of the more manipulative, maybe put a spell on Lori Vallow and made her do things, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know. So if they're going to do it, they should charge it, but I don't think they're going to. if they had the case, they were going to do it. If they were going to make a deal, we're not close to trial yet, but let's face it, they only looking at spending 10 years in prison. Now, yes, nobody wants to go to prison for 10 years, but that's not life. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket science to figure it out. So let me get this straight. Think about it. You're lawyer Chad. So let me get this straight here. Right now, I'm charged with 2 counts of tampering, destruction, hiding of these remains, hindering the police doing their investigation. And so what you're telling me is it's only 5 years each for each case. So if they're each consecutive, that's 10 years max, correct? Yes. But if I say I was involved in a murder, I could be looking at either life or, significant sentence if I was an accessory or something along those lines. And the attorney would have to say, yes, exactly. Where is the incentive or motivation for a defendant to do that? Right? I mean, if they had involvement, if you didn't do it, certainly why would you plead guilty to something you didn't do? If you did do it, but you're looking to spend the rest of your life in prison, but now they've only going to have a 10-year sentence. And let's face it, my position would be this is all encompassing as it relates to any homicide case. So this is their shot. Once that jury is seated, jeopardy attaches. And, I think they'd have a double jeopardy argument if that were the case. So I'd be like, let's get this thing to trial, man. Let's do it. I had a case once where my client maybe put his foot on somebody's head repeatedly over and over again and put him in the hospital. And, the offer was, go to prison for a long, long time. And the question was, well, is the victim, is he going to die? Oh, we don't know. It's basically the parents won't take him off of, the life support. Oh, okay. Well, when can we get a trial in here as quickly as possible? If there's no offer, when can we get that done as quickly as possible? Because if victim died, guess what? Then we got a murder case. So, like I said, I think I'd be in the position that jeopardy would attach because all these facts are interrelated, intertwined. If you got murder, you got to bring it. That's just my thinking. But what do I know? But that's the way I would look at it. I'd be like, why would I want another delay? Oh, look, Julie and Frank, the hardest working man in show business, found Mrs. Potato Restaurant. Look at that photograph there. Brazilian? Yeah. Oh, do you have a menu that can pull up? Oh, wow. That's the famous guy. Yeah. Flay or Frey or Guy Fieri. That's right. And the diner guy. Yeah. Oh, so it's a Brazilian place. I didn't know what Mrs. Potato was. But I think everyone down there in Florida, wasn't Orlando? Wasn't that it? Yeah. They should go down there and completely, pack the place. And for just being good citizens, right? Go order something from them. I just think that is the best story ever. That just it restores your faith in humanity when you hear stories like that, where they literally probably saved a young child's life because somebody just knew something wasn't correct. Something didn't feel right. So yeah. Next time I'm in Florida, we're going to go by Mrs. Potato. Oh, here comes good. Nikki wants to know. This is the question you always get as a criminal defense attorney. How do you defend a rapist? Just like every other client, hold the government to their burden of proof and protect your client's due process rights, their constitutional rights. Right? No one as a defense attorney condones the actions of their clients that they're alleged to have done. But everybody's entitled to an attorney. And so whether it is a rape case, sexual assault case, murder case, everything in between, everyone's entitled to an attorney. And you go about it by looking to see if the prosecution can prove their case. Will their case stand up to proof beyond a reasonable doubt? The highest form of proof known in the law. So get that question all the time, Nikki. Usually it's, how do you defend a murderer? Well, just like every other client, you look at the evidence they have and can they prove it? Bottom line, you start your investigation. You look at the law, you look at the facts. It really doesn't matter. If you were in school, bottom line, and you wanted to be a lawyer, right? Say you always want to be a prosecutor. But in this particular assignment, you had to be a defense attorney. You had to be a good defense attorney. Of course you would do it. Bottom line, you would do it because a good attorney can argue either side of a case. And that's what attorneys do. They look at the entire case, both sides. Like, remember, we've talked about this before, and we can talk about this on the Patreon. When we go to that here momentarily, that's what as a good attorney has to say, all right, I think you got a good case, but here's the bad stuff too. There's no guarantees that jury's going to get it. You're constantly looking at the prosecution's case and your case and evaluating that. So like I said, normally I get it. I used to get it from my mother-in-law all the time. How do you defend those guilty people? Oh my goodness. How do you do that? Wouldn't you like to be a judge someday? No, ma'am. No. The guilty ones are easy. It's the innocent ones that keep you up at night. 744, kind of like weed shops being essential. Yes, everyone is essential. Here in Denver, right? They sold, like, since last year, Coronas, like $2 billion in weed. And when they said that they were going to shut the city down, the mayor's like, oh, I hope we don't shut down liquor stores. Oh, and weed stores too. And I had an interesting conversation with a doctor. I said, if this is so bad, why are they not shutting down all this stuff? And basically what this doctor friend said was that if they thought they were going to be overrun by COVID, if you shut off people's alcohol supply, because there's so many people that are, need a drink, functioning alcoholics, that they would overwhelm the medical system. Now, that's his opinion. I don't know if that's true. Kind of makes sense. And I'm not sure if they figured that in or the state just needed the tax revenue. My guess is it was about the money, but that's just me. Oh, here we go. Frank has been able to pull up the menu from Mrs. Potato there in Orlando, where they literally saved that 11-year-old boy who had been abused. Oh, now I cannot say that I have that familiar with Brazilian food, but it looks pretty good. I think what's that Brazilian place where they cut the meat off as you go through? I've eaten there once. Rodizio, right? Was that it?
Yes.
I know. We need to hop in and go. Let's go, man. All right. Great. Exactly, Angela. Now you're hungry. Yeah, it'd be great. We got some road trips to take. I just need to figure out if we don't have any trials in March, boom, we're out of here. But if I got trials coming in March, which I got to start preparing for now, I'm going to be a busy man. But who knows? Like Idaho. Remember last week on Crime? See, this is another reason why I need to join Patreon. Last week we had what was his name? Xavier?
His name?
Yeah.
Xander.
We had Xander, who lived in Rexburg, Idaho, call in. He was like our man on the street, letting us know what the real word on the street is down there. Maybe Xander will call in tonight as well. We'd certainly appreciate that. But he gave us where to fly into, told us where to eat, said he'd show us around town. He and his family would show us around town, get the feel there for Rexburg for sure. So there's another thing. Like I said, when we do the Patreon, people call in. I wish more people would call in. People get shy. I'm not sure why. But anyway. All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for tuning in this evening. Thank you very much. This was our live show. We actually went a little over tonight because hopefully you thought it was enjoyable. Looked like we had quite a few viewers on as we go on. So what we're going to do now, take a quick break. Frank will send out the link to all our Patreon members. We'll basically continue this conversation and talk about anything that our Patreons want to talk about because it's their show. And the best thing is they get to call in and we can really have a good conversation. So hopefully they'll do that tonight. So please, our Patreons, call in. All right. We'll see you all tomorrow on CrimeTalk, and we'll see all our Patreon members here momentarily. Have a great night. Thanks for watching.